So before we start our section, I would like to take a moment to introduce our speaker for today, Mr. Urasari. So, Mr. Ura is a strategy and governance professional with over 15 years of experience working with a government agency, regulator, and the private sector in such as strategy planning, governance, and organizational transaction. He also led development of his first 6 year strategy plan and headed the task force for the Personal Data Protection (PDPA) Amendment Bill, which was passed by the Parliament in July 2024. Without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Urasari.
Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. How are you? How's everybody? First I would like to wish Salam Ramadan to everybody who are fasting and celebrating the month. So what we have here this afternoon, I would like to bring sharing on what's the amendment of PDPA in 2024 and what the Malaysian organization must act now. Okay, as introduced by Yon, I have a experience in personal data protection department, and like at the moment I'm a governance and compliance consultant, and I'm also a HRD Corp accredited trainer, and as well as a Prince 2 practitioner. So at a glance, I would like to share with you the content of today's webinar. So I will start with introduction, and we have 3 sessions across this 2 hours webinar. Session 1 is about key amendments, frequently asked questions. Session 2 is about business and operational impact. And session 3 is about capacity development. Okay, sorry for that pause. So I'll begin to recap the PDPA amendments journey between 2024 and 2025. So as you can see that the act has been since 2013, and the first amendment took place after almost 10 years of the enforcement of the law back in 2024. The Parliament, Dewan Rakyat has approved the amendment bill in July, and then the Dewan Negara, the upper house, approved in same month, and got the Royal Perkenan Diraja or Royal Assent in October, and the gazettement of the amendment in October. So the PDPA amendment was taken in effect over 3 stages. The 1st January of last year, 1st April, and 1st June 2025. So there are lots of amendments, including key amendments. I believe I will share this later on with you guys. Okay. It's important to understand that the PDPA amendments, as a first amendment of the law, there have been lots of discussion over what need to be amended first. After going through a series of discussion, public consultation, negotiation with various stakeholders. Um, there have been plus and minus components of amendments, but towards the end of the process, they have been agreed between major stakeholders, government, attorney general, and ministries that the PDPA amendment consists of four pillars. And the pillar number one is to modernizing the foundation of the law. This includes terminology shift, as you know, shifting terminology from data user to data controller, and then the expansion of sensitive personal data to include biometrics as one of the sensitive personal data. And then second pillar is to um, elevating accountability. These are one of the main key amendments of the law is the mandatory data protection officer appointment, which we will discuss later, and then the new data processor obligation. Okay, and the third pillar is managing incidents and risk. Number one is mandatory data breach notifications. Number two is to increase the financial penalties for non-compliance. And pillar number four is empowering data flows and rights, which includes right to data portability for data subjects. They have the right to request for their data to be transferred to another controller. And number two is the change of cross-border data transfer regime, which determines the adequacy or the adequate level of data protection of destination country. Okay, let's go to what are the key amendments frequently asked questions. As I mentioned earlier, um, the terminology of data user is now shifted to data controller. This is to align the terminology to global standards because previously it was used data user instead of data controller. Many legislation around the globe has been using data controller as the terminology to represent the person or organization that process personal data. So the impact of this, all legal contracts, privacy notices, or internal policies must be updated to reflect the data controller terminology. So as in your organization, you need to put very attention to translate or to change this terminology. Okay, next is the introduction of biometrics as one of the sensitive personal data. So this includes physical, psychological, or behavior. So in the law, in the amended law, biometric data means any personal data resulting from technical processing relating to psychological, to physical, psychological, or behavioral characteristic of a person. So biometric is now considered as the sensitive personal data alongside health information, political opinions, religious belief, criminal records, and race. So in terms of operational impact, the introduction of biometrics as one of the sensitive personal data requires explicit consent of processing. So companies, organizations that collect biometric information, they need to get explicit consent as regard to any other personal information as sensitive personal data. Okay. Okay, let's drill down to the new accountability of data controller and data processor. So one of the many questions that arise before the amendment of the law, who is required to appoint a data protection officer or DPO? So the commissioner has introduced the requirement for mandatory appointment. So number one, if your organization processing personal data exceeding 20,000 data subjects, that's number one criteria. Or your organization process sensitive personal data, including financial information exceeding 10,000 data subjects, or your organization routine activities involve activities that require regular and systematic monitoring of personal data. So the next question, who needs to appoint? I'm a data controller, I'm a data processor. The answer is both data controller and data processor must appoint DPO themselves. Okay. So what are the minimum requirements? They have been questioning. Do they need to be a person that well versed in legal, or is there a person in IT savvy thing? So in principle, a DPO must possess sound knowledge of PDPA and understand the nature of the organization, and has relevant or basic IT security system knowledge. And the appointment of a DPO must be informed to Personal Data Protection Commissioner upon the appointment. All right. Next, frequent asked question. Who can be appointed as a DPO? It can be internal staff. You can appoint any existing staff and designate that particular person as a DPO, provided their other duties does not create any conflict of interest with their data protection task. I give you a simple example. If that person is that staff is currently handling marketing, so marketing involves many promotion, advertisement activities. So it sort of has a small conflict of interest if that particular person, the HR person, the marketing person was appointed as DPO. So you can be external service provider. You can actually your organization can appoint organizations such as legal firm or consulting firm. There are many outside there that offer the outsourcing service as a DPO as a service to your organization. What's the minimum qualification of a DPO? Do they need a degree or any professional certification? At the moment, there's no minimum professional qualification set by the commissioner, but to have some, as I said, sound knowledge of the law and basic operation of the organization, as well as IT and security knowledge, that would be sufficient. Okay. How long a DPO can be appointed? Is there any minimum appointment term of a DPO? Yes, according to the guideline released by the commissioner, it is recommended to ensure that the appointment is for a term that at least 2 years. This is to ensure stability and to ensure the appointed DPO can perform their duty appropriately and comfortably. Okay, this is quite basic terms in another legislation. Yeah. Okay. All right. There are lots of questions. Which companies are required to appoint a DPO? So, as if a company's organization fulfill one of the 3 requirements of mandatory appointment of a DPO, the company must appoint DPO. That's as simple. Okay, it doesn't have to be either your company or organization is one of the 13th data controller class. You know, there are 13 data controller class that have been listed in the law. Okay, for example, we have communication, healthcare, education, real estate, tourism and hospitality, private education, insurance, pawnbroker, money lenders, financial institution, of course. So these are 13 class of data controller. But if your company is outside or beyond of these certain sectors, you still need to appoint a DPO if you fulfill one of the requirements. So there are lots of guides provided by the commissioner. You can scan from the QR code. There's a link. You can download the guideline for DPO appointment from the regulatory websites. All right, so fast. Okay. All right. Let's go. Next, the responsibility of data processor. Okay. Prior to this, data processor are not obliged to comply to any um, principles of in PDPA. So with the new amendment of PDPA, the new legal obligation are now shared with data processor for security principle only. Okay. Prior to this, none of principles are subjected to data processor. So data processor now sharing responsibility in terms of ensuring the security of personal data with data controller. Okay, so the impact of this obligation, organization as a data controller, you need to update your legal contract or any agreement between you as a data controller with data processor to ensure that they understand and they can comply with the security principle of PDPA. It's quite fairly straightforward. And of course, data processors are now exposed to legal implication if they fail to ensure security at their site is at par or comply with PDPA. Okay, next we go to data breach notification. This is quite interesting topic because we seldom hear or know of data breach incident happen in Malaysia. Only after it been spread out in social media or websites or internet. So to make our PDPA levels with international or global standards, there is new amendment on the requirement to notify of any data breach. Okay, what will happen when a personal data breach occurs? So there are two criteria to identify whether that particular data breach is notifiable to PDP commissioner. Number one is if that data breach is result or likely result in a significant harm or significant scale. Okay, so within 72 hours after any data breach is notified, is aware, if you aware any data breach happen within 72 hours, you must notify the commissioner through their system. Okay, so significant harm, what does it mean by significant harm? Significant harm, that a breach is considered to cause significant harm if there is a risk that compromise data leads to any of the following. Number one is physical harm, financial loss, negative credit impact, or property damage. Number two, significant harm, misuse for illegal purposes. Three, exposure of sensitive personal data such as medical records, biometrics, and any combination of data that potentially enable identity fraud. So that's defined significant harm. So what will happen if that data breach likely result in significant harm? So you must notify the commissioner. Okay, and the significant scale, it can be significant harm or significant scale. If the scale is more than 1,000 data subjects, you must also notify the commissioner. Okay, how about the data subject? Do we need to notify them? Yes, if that data breach cause a significant harm, which is physical, financial, and reputational. So you must notify the data subject 7 days, within 7 days after you notify the commissioner. Okay. What's the impact of non-compliance for database notification? The penalty is the fine up to RM 250,000 ringgit and or 2 years imprisonment. So quite a heavy fine and imprisonment penalty, right? Okay. Defining significant scale, as I mentioned, more than 1,000. So many people are trying to say us, okay, how about data breach 999? Okay. So it's still more than 1,000. Okay. So if 999 is not exceeding the threshold, so it's not considered as significant scale according to the law. Okay. Okay, we talk about data processor. It's now obliged under PDP under security principle. They need to comply and ensure that system. How about what will happen if data breach happen at data processor site? Okay, do they need to notify PDP commissioner? No, the processor only need to notify data controller. So it is the responsibility of data controller to notify PDP commissioner. Okay, I believe there are lots of questions, but there are many. There are quite comprehensive guides provided by JPDP or commissioner. You can find from this QR code provided. Okay. So increased penalty. What is the new cost of non-compliance? Prior to this, the old penalty in the old law up to 300,000 or 2 years imprisonment for non-compliance for 7 principles of personal data protection. So the new penalty can cost you up to 1 million ringgit and or 3 years imprisonment. The increment of penalty shows that the government is actually serious looking into this personal data protection matters in ensuring uh, the citizen personal data is well taken care under the care of data controller. Okay, this also applies to data controller breaching general principle and now applies directly to data processor who contravene the security principle. Okay, you remember I said data processor is now obliged under security principle. So if let's say they have non-compliance to security principle, they can be fined up to 1 million ringgit or 3 years imprisonment. Okay, new data subject right. Talking about new data portability. Okay, data portability means data subject can now request their personal data that currently being held by a controller A, for example, to be transferred to controller B. But in one condition, B is subjected to technical feasibility or in by electronic means. So let's say I have my personal healthcare information at hospital A. I wish to request my personal data to be transferred to hospital B. So hospital A, this right uh, allows the hospital A to transfer my information to another hospital, but still subject to technical feasibility. We're not talking about transferring physical patient file, printed physical file, carried to another hospital, but we're talking about transferring the information through electronic means. Okay, There are lots of um, preparation needs to be done by data controller in order to prepare themselves to entertain this request. So it is still depending on your organization. If your organization or your industry has any specific technical feasibility, data transfer, for example, between clinics to clinics, hospital to hospital, school to school, so you can actually work on it. Okay. All right. We go to one interesting amendment. It's about cross-border personal data transfer. So the amendment, the previous law requires minister to specify the approved countries that we can send personal data abroad. Okay, they normally use term whitelist. Okay, so whitelist means you have a list that lists a destination countries that is you can send personal data. But this amendment changed that regime entirely, and the abolishment of rigid whitelist to a dynamic adequacy standard. So the new standard states a data controller, may transfer personal data outside of Malaysia if the destination place ensures an adequate level of protection, okay, or at least equivalent to the level of protection afforded by the Act. Okay, for example, we know that we're going to send a personal data to Singapore. So Singapore has equivalent data protection law to Pdpa. So um, by default, yes, we can send. And the abolishment of whitelist does not undermine the provision allowed in the law. So in section 129 bracket 3 still allows data controller to transmit or transfer their clients information abroad if that uh, um, transfer is allowed by consent of the client, or is written under the contractual performance, and any other means. So there are still measures to control or to safeguard the data transfer abroad. So you have, as a data controller, you must ensure that the destination country has adequate level of protection. And number two, there's still provision under section 129 bracket 3 to allow data transfer if you have consent or to perform contractual performance. Okay. What are the benefits of abolishing the whitelist gazette? Okay. As we know that having that whitelist, um, because the whitelist never has no names in it since the beginning of the law. Okay, there's no country being listed in the list. So in terms of international diplomacy, we have it's good not to have a whitelist. So we just leave uh, the requirement to transfer based on adequacy requirement. So the amendments aims to facilitate international trade. Of course, there are plenty of international trade that requires personal data or privacy terms in it. Then this provision will also ensure an adequate level of protection, or at least protection equivalent to what been provided domestically for that particular data transfer to be before it can be made. Okay, as I said, the existing conditions under subsection 3, section 1 to 9 remains relevant, sufficient, and aligned with international standards. So there are many guides provided by Commissioner. Very useful guidelines has been provided, released. You can scan the QR code to get that guidelines. Okay, we have gone through 4 pillars of PDPA amendments. Okay, so I believe you have many questions. You feel free to write down in the chat box. Okay. All right. Let's go to business and operational impact. What the impact of PDPA amendments to you as organization? Okay, in terms of financial and operational risk, of course, there are 1 million fine or 3 years imprisonment. Okay, if you contravene the personal data protection principles. And now, if you are data processor, you must be aware that you are now face the risk of being fined up to 1 million if you have non-compliance on security principle. Okay. Next is the new mandatory data breach notification. If you fail to notify the commissioner, there are 250,000 penalties or 2 years imprisonment. So I believe this could raise your management attention that PDP, personal data protection, is no longer a matter of tick box. It needs to be in your ecosystem. Okay, third-party ecosystem are now directly regulated. So prior to this, data controller and data processor seems like they work separately within the ecosystem of PDPA. So under the amendment, the new section regulates data processor must independently comply with security principle. So if you are cloud hosting provider, payroll vendor, marketing agency, security company, you are now share the liability with data controller. Okay, and of course, as a data processor, you also need to appoint a DPO if you fulfill one of 3 requirements that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so what are the operational impact? So of course, if you work in procurement, vendor onboarding, or existing data processing agreement, DPA must be entirely reevaluated to enforce and to reflect the new security obligation. It's not sounds too complicated, but it's a serious thing that you need to put in place as an organization to reflect the amendments of PDPA into your business. Okay, strategic assessment, revisiting the code of practice. Okay, if you're familiar, code of practice is governed by section 23 to 29 in PDPA. Code of practice were built to specific class of data controllers, 13 class of data controllers registered by PDP commissioner. So COP must be revisited to integrate the components of PDPA amendment 2024. For example, the incident response must be integrated into the new COP. How you handle the 72 hours DBN protocols. How do you notify the data subject? Okay, those are incident response need to be incorporated into the new COP. And of course, not to say that if previously you have been using data user in your COP, you obviously need to update data user to data controller. And second, on DPO governance. So in COP must reflect the establishment of formal reporting lines and authority for the new DPO mandate. Number 3, biometric data handling. Of course, if your organization or industry heavily use biometric information, you need to put that definition, procedure, and process how to conduct or maintain process biometric information. And of course, in order to support data portability, right? Your organization, if you're ready, you must put the readiness, you must translate that readiness into COP by designing technical feasibility framework to support the new data portability, right? Okay, do you familiar with privacy notice? Of course, I believe your organization have privacy notice. Okay, so to reflect the PDPA amendment, you must realign public-facing privacy notice architecture. So your privacy notice is actually external policies, tells public how do you deal with their information. Okay, so your privacy notice must also updated with biometric data disclosure, data portability, mechanism if there is any, and breach communication template. It's not easy to manage a data breach, because it is the best you prepare yourself before the breach happen rather than after the breach happen. So you must prepare all those templates. Pre-approved notification template must be drafted to alert data subject. You must have that. And certain organization has conducted data breach simulation. They use template or template reports provided by the commissioner. They run a simulation and to get everybody's understanding how to manage and mitigate a data breach communication. So this is important. Privacy notice is your one of the requirements by PDPA that to showcase that your ability to understand law first, and secondly to safeguard the personal data within your keep. Okay. So upgrading internal governance and vendor management. As I said, due to the amendment, data processor or vendors are now shared the liability. So from legal and compliance perspective, um, internal policies must mandate data protection impact assessment or DPIA to any new project, or it can be existing project if you want to review the impact on data protection, and you must identify and mitigate risk before processing new project begins. Okay, so conduct DPIA regularly for new project, any new project, or to the certain extent, if you like to revise or review the existing project, you can also conduct DPIA. From IT operation perspective, there's a need to for IT security integration. The IT infrastructure must be integrated with legal and compliance to guarantee potential data breach is escalated to DPO within hours to meet the 72 hours commissioner notification window. You must have the IT operation ready, work together with legal compliance in order to meet the 72 hours notification window. Okay? So from procurement perspective, so vendor contract must be revised. Okay? Existing data processing agreement must be renegotiated if there's clause or terms that need to be renegotiated. Okay. Certain companies came back to me and said, is it possible if I put some certain condition that data processor must appoint DPO in order before they can participate in our contract? I said, okay, by all means, if that data processor fulfill one of the requirement. So as a data controller, you can put any terms to according to PDPA's requirement in order to ensure that your vendor or data processor comply to the security principle. Okay. So where to go about? So I would suggest there are two phases in order to comply with this new key amendments. Okay, phase 1 and phase 2. Okay, to assess and establish day 1 until day 30, means within 30 days you can actually prepare yourself to comply with the requirement of the new law. Number one, if your organization is fulfill one of the three requirements of DPO appointment, you can identify and appoint, officially designate the data protection officer for both controllers and data processor entities. As a data controller, you can seek confirmation for your data processor. Have you appointed your data protection officer yet? Okay, you must done that. Okay, and then you must register the DPO and their business contact information to Commissioner's Portal or SPDP within the 21 legal window. Okay, upon you appoint that DPO, settle the contract, agreement, things like that, and then within 21 days, you must notify the commissioner. Okay, next, you establish breach triage. Okay, form an immediate cross-functional incident response team, which normally includes legal, IT, or PR communication, which capable of executing the significant scale and significant harm assessment within 72 hours. So you need to put competent person depending on size of your organization. If you're micro organization, it's differ than small and medium. Big organization, you must have this immediate incident response team. I believe most of big organization already have in place. And then next is to conduct gap analysis. This is to initiate a comprehension audit of existing data inventories and flagging all biometric data access. Because previously you collect biometrics does not require consent in the law because it didn't define as sensitive person data. But now, if you previously have been collected biometrics, you need to reassess those assets because they are now considered as sensitive person data. Okay, after 30 days, if you complete all this, you go to phase 3, revamp and remediate day 30 until day 90 in the second and third months. Okay, so what you need to do is number one, to overhaul the PDP personal data protection policy. Okay, so the revision of COP is to be led by Data Controller Forum actually. Okay, I'm talking about PDP policy for your organization. You must do revision. And then contract remediation. Issues contract addendums if required to all third-party vendors or data processor enforcing the new statutory security liabilities and DPO requirements. Next, technical architecture. IT departments to assess and build the technical feasibility required to process electronic data portability requests. And policy rollout. Publish updated external privacy notices to all consumers and data subjects. This thing can be done within 2 months. Okay, so first month is to settle all the appointments of DPO, set up data breach notification protocols. Second and third months is to overhaul the policies, contracts, and prepare for technical architecture and policy rollout. And phase 4, to operationalize and monitor. You must continuously conduct DPIA. This is to embed data protection impact assessment or DPIA into the standard life cycle of all new product, software, or marketing campaigns. And of course, you must never forget to increase the level of skills awareness by targeted training. There have been many organization training provider on training, targeted training, uh, role specific training across organization, utilizing qualified external training provider. This is to ensure frontliner staff can recognize a personal data breach. I would like to share some of quite funny story because um, one organization normally, um, depending on specific staff on PDP or personal data protection matters. So what happened if that staff resign or move to another organization? So that organization normally left handicapped because they're too dependent on individuals. That organization do not, did not prepare the whole ecosystem, did not prepare the culture for personal data protection. So this is important. Through training, you can continuously improve the skill, knowledge of your staff within the organization, regardless whoever taking care of that personal data matters, they can still handle it. Okay. Next is to do vendor audits. Okay, this is to ensure that all your data processor are complied to the law. You can always put in your terms that any data processor or vendor that wish to take part in our contract must appoint DPO. Okay, uh, must register if they fall into 13 class of data controller. And of course, after you assess, you train, you monitor, and you do some reporting. So this is where DPO accessibility. Okay, DPO DPO's information must be maintained uh, in public domain as well as to commissioner. Okay, if let's say you have new DPO, you must update the commissioner within 40 days, 14 days of that change. Okay, so this uh, operationalization and monitoring considered as one complete cycle. How you going to ensure that the organization are complying to PDPA? Executive action items. What your top management need to decide today? The objective is to secure organizational compliance and avoid Ringgit Malaysia 1 million liability risk. So, number one, I repeat, approve DPO appointment and budget. Okay. Formally ratify the DPO candidate to initiate the 21-day JPDP SPDP registration countdown and allocate budget for their function. As I mentioned, the commissioner allows outsourcing, DPO outsourcing. You can always outsource the DPO function if you don't have sufficient budget to recruit your own DPO. You can always go for outsourcing services. Okay. Number two, top management must decide authorize vendor contract audit. This is to empower legal and procurement to freeze risky vendors onboarding and mandate renegotiation of existing agreement. Third decision, you must mandate 72 hours drill. You can direct the IT and compliance team to run a simulated database notification exercise. Okay, that's quite fairly straightforward for top management to decide today. Okay, do we receive any questions? Any question from the chat? We have few. Okay. Can we take one? Okay. Let me see. Okay, we have query from Ifana Dama. Okay, sir, if a company has less than 500, still need to appoint officer under the act. Okay, thank you for that question. I'm trying to understand the question. If your company has less than 500 employees or have 500 um, client information. Oh, okay, can be either one. Okay, so based on the requirement by commissioner, uh, requirement number one is you appoint DPO if you process more than 20,000 personal data. Number two, if you process more than 10,000 sensitive personal data, which including financial information, or number three, if you consistently uh, uh, conduct activities involving monitoring of individuals, for example, CCTV, monitoring of cameras, or um, membership, for example. So, if your company less than 500, I mean, you don't need to appoint DPO. But if your company with 500 uh, um, personal data, clients' personal data, but you conduct consistent monitoring of their behavior, of their movement, then you fulfill the third requirement of appointment of DPO. So I would say um, you must check the requirement of DPO appointment. If you fulfill one of three requirements, then you need to appoint DPO. I hope I understand your 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 question correctly and answer your question. Ms. Emily, is DPIA mandated under the Act? At the moment, no, but there are coming up. The commissioner is coming up with guidelines of DPIA um, uh, in the next upcoming guidelines. But I would say it's not mandated, but it's a good practice to conduct DPIA so that you know the current state of your data protection ecosystem. Okay, Mr. Ng. Okay, may I know what 20,000 data subject refers to? You're talking about 20,000 personal data information. They say you have 20,000 unique personal information. Okay, so in another word, you have 20,000 clients information in your hand, so you fulfill that DPO requirement. Okay, data subject here, Mr. Rutan, data subject here refers to a number of employees. Um, yes, I guess yes. If you, because employees also considered as data subject, so you keep employees information. If you have 20,000 employees, then you consider as fulfill the requirement to appoint DPO. All right. Okay, let's back to our discussion on um, the next one on capacity development. Okay. Okay, we've been discussing about the requirements. So how to fulfill that requirement without capacity development? This is very important because if you don't know what to protect, so how to protect? That's a simple words. Okay. Kalau bahasa Melayu, you tak tahu nak makan apa, you nak beli apa, you tak tahu. Okay. So capacity development, the commissioner has developed a comprehensive um, knowledge development for data protection officer. So, but the vision is extend far beyond compliance. Okay, so DPO appointment is more than an appointment. So you need to integrate personal data protection into daily operation in a structured and accountable manner. So you need to have structural independence. Okay, the DPO must operate with a sufficient degree of autonomy. That's that's the reason why it is recommended to appoint a DPO on a fixed term. It's recommended for 2 years, so that DPO has sufficient degree of autonomy, degree of comfortability to perform their task. Okay, and executive access. Okay, DPO must be given a direct reporting access to senior management in order to guarantee true organizational oversight. Okay, DPO is not someone that must go through multiple layers in order to deliver or to communicate with senior management. Okay, normally we can advise that DPO is most organization, for example, internal audits, they put directly reporting to CEO. Okay, so we can suggest that DPO can directly reporting to number one of the organization or CEO. Okay. So what's the progression? What's the roadmap in order to develop your DPO from somebody with uh, minimum knowledge to an advanced tier? So the commissioner has developed a competency on DPO. So it's a progressive pathway scaled to specific risk, size, and complexity of an organization. So if your organization is growing, you need to develop and uplift the DPO responsibility. So phase one, the core framework. So a basic DPO must understand 6 core competencies areas. Okay, and then phase two, going to fundamental tiers, which that DPO establishing the operational baseline required for all organization. And then phase three, the advanced tier. This one ascending to a strategic leadership for complex, high risk, and global data ecosystem. Phase three, advanced tier, we're talking about organization with large scale, with high risk, yeah? and important business ecosystem. So this development roadmap will be supported by the commissioner through the development of uh, various a number of guidelines. For example, DPO competency guideline, um, DPO competency pathway development, and also the training provider that providing competency development for DPO also provided with specific guideline. Next. Okay, there are 6 pillars of competencies. This is to effectively oversight the person data requirement mastery level across 6 distinct operational and strategic domains. Number one is advisory and support. Number two, risk management and assessment. Third, compliance oversight and monitoring. Fourth, audit and reporting. Fifth, communication and stakeholder engagement. Sixth, regulatory and data subject management. So these 6 pillars encompasses of relationship within your organization, you DPO, and what your responsibility, your relationship with your organization. Second spectrum is your relationship with your stakeholders, your clients, your partners, your vendors. And third is your um, partnership, your relationship with the regulator. Okay, so I go first. Pillar 1 and 2, and on advisory and risk. So on advisory and support, so the competency of a DPO must support this number one, advisory and support, which focuses on translating PDPA into practical procedure. Action examples such as guiding new business initiative, explaining the application of personal data protection law to the operational activities of data controllers, and of course, to your vendors and data or data processor. And then second competency is risk management and assessment. It focuses on full life cycle of personal data protection. So you must understand the 7 principles of personal data protection. Then you know the full cycle of personal data. It starts from consent, notice on choice, um, disclosure, um, what else? Retention, security, and until you provide integrity and access to the subject. So actions required for this competency is by identifying and mitigating risk and assess emerging security threats. So that DPO must know what are the trend of security threat, eh? And executing data protection impact assessment (DPIA). And if your organization involved in cross-border data transfer, you must know transfer impact assessment or TIA. Okay. Pillar 3 and 4, compliance and audit. In terms of competent in compliance oversight and monitoring, that is focused on continuous adherence and life cycle management. Action examples like mapping personal data processing activities and classifying sensitive data. This is normally we call it as data inventory. So your organization must have data inventory. It tells you what data that you collect from whom, when, and what you do with that particular personal data. Okay, and then you need to develop robust incident management policies. This is relates to data breach notification requirement. And audit and reporting competency focuses on accountability and transparent document. So in order to support or to fulfill the requirement of appointment of DPO, notification of data breach, you need to have a good record maintenance. Okay, you need to have the information of who and which vendors that holds that particular personal data. And then you need to conduct regular personal data audits, yeah, and report precise data risk to executive management. Pillar 5 and 6, engagement and regulatory management. So in terms of communication and stakeholder engagement, this is to foster a culture of privacy within the organization. Okay, DPO is expected to be able to deliver internal training, internal awareness, and engaging in cross-functional requirement of privacy and data protection culture within that organization, and integrating data protection into daily corporate governance. Okay, and in terms of regulatory and data subject management, it is vital. This is acting as the primary context. DPO between the organization, whether it's data controller or data processor, with commissioner, and ensuring prompt data breach notification. And DPO is also interact directly with handling data subject access and correction requests. So if there is any complaints, so DPO is the person who will entertain those complaints. All right. Okay, in terms of proficiency of DPO, the commissioner has outlined there are 2-tiered DPO levels of proficiency, determined by the nature of skill and risk exposed by your organization in terms of personal data protection processing activities. Number 1 is the fundamental tier. This is the mandatory operational baseline. So all DPOs are expected to meet this minimum core competencies, the 6 competencies that I've explained earlier. And then upon the advancement of your business operation, you need to uplift the levels of proficiency of your DPO into the advanced tier. So what the advanced tier tells you, the it's about the becoming from basic or ordinary DPO into a strategic thinking DPO. So an advanced tier DPO is required for complex processing, large volumes of sensitive data, and enterprise-wide strategic leadership. So at this advanced tier level, a DPO must have a strategic mindset and and must think beyond ordinary thinking of fundamental tier levels. Okay, so the fundamental tier is a operational baseline. It's, the aims is to deliver the essential capabilities required to execute PDPA compliance effectively. Okay, so expected capabilities, basic reviewing personal data clauses in contract and alerting management to critical risk, coordinating personal data breach responses with internal teams, monitoring the implementation of SOPs, and handling basic data subjects inquiries. So these basic fundamental tiers can be delivered through a team support. Okay, can be fulfilled through the organization uh, collaboration, individual expertise, internal organization resources, or external third-party expert. Okay, this is by providing the PO the ability to maintain ultimate oversight. Okay, although you have a team to support that role, that name DPO must remain the ultimate oversight individuals. Okay, you cannot simply delegate certain function of your DPO blindly or 100% to another person. But you must, as a DPO, you must maintain as a single person, because if anything happen, if there is any information from the regulator or from the commissioner, they will definitely contact you as DPO. Okay, and then we go to advanced tier. We call it the strategy catalyst. It's ascending from operational oversight, dealing with operational matters, to driving organization, to ensure that the organizational data protection ecosystem is developed rather than stagnant. And then you need to also consider for cultural change. If let's say your organization do not have that culture of personal data protection, so you need to do cultural change. So expected capabilities, of course, fulfilling all fundamental competencies with high degree of independence. Number two, translating complex legal requirement into wide compliance strategies. And you as a strategist must provide high level strategic advisors to senior leadership to influence business decision making. For example, the business direction is switching from less information that you collect from your client into a business that massively depending on client's information. Kan? For example, we often seeing business now collecting clients' information for loyalty or memberships, right? Even you buy shoes also now, they collect. You want to be a member, is it? Can you want to be a member? So they collect information from just selling shoes to collecting personal data. So a huge leap of business nature from not collecting personal data, just selling shoes, into collecting bias information. So, as a strategic DPO, you must advise your organization what you need to do in order to ensure that your new business do not jeopardize your entire data protection compliance ecosystem. And of course, at Advanced tier, a DPO is expected to representing the organization in regulatory engagement and industry forums. So during my time at the commissioner office, the commissioner were always encouraging um, industry to participate in engagement and industry forums. Okay, what is the certification pathway? At the moment, the commissioner does not specify any specific pathway. You need to take certain professional certification or whatnot? But in general, a structured approach to validating DPO competencies are through recognized training and assessment. Yeah, I believe HR Forum also been conducting various data protection officer training. Okay, so you need to go for short-term recognition, normally through certificates of completion for both fundamental and advanced training modules. But if you want to go for advanced here, you can go for long-term recognition. There are lots of professional certification provided by in industry. For example, I could name a certified data protection officer, advanced or fundamentals, or there are some organizations that provide professional certification, which is recognized globally. So, in general, certification is not um, mandatory, but it's good to have. So, if you have your organization GPO has certification or professional certification, is good for your organization in a short and long term. All right. Um, can can we look at the question? Okay. I think I have covered until 3 sessions. Okay. Um, okay. Let's go to. Okay. Okay. We have from Kwai Kenny. Is DPIA compulsory? No. At the moment, it's not mandated under PDPA, but it is good practice if you can conduct DPIA. And what are the standards we should follow? Um, Depending on your organization, if you deal a lot with international business, you can always refer to DPIA templates provided by in GDPR, EU GDPR. You can always use that. But I believe that Malaysian regulator is currently developing DPIA guideline. Okay, we can always refer that. But in the meantime, you can always refer DPIA templates and how to conduct DPIA from EU GDPR. Okay, let's go through. Aisha Shikin, business nature is e-commerce, selling product online. Does it mean our business falls under retails category? Okay, the retails category, if you are a registered business under SSM and you do some retails, then yes. Okay? So you are required by the law to register for register to commissioner. And then, do you need to appoint DPO? Yeah, if your data subject information that you keep is more than 20,000, or yes. Okay. We have from Chris, is there 20K total for annual or monthly? Annual or monthly? I believe certain business, their number of personal data is fluctuating, right? But it's best to to decide if your at one time you has reached 20,000 uh, data subjects, then it's the best to save. Uh, to be safe, you appoint your DPO. But throughout the time, maybe after 6 months, your data subjects number reduced to 10,000. And so, do you need to relinquish or remove that DPO? Of course not. Appointing a DPO is a good practice for organization to ensure that your long-term compliance to PDPA is fulfilled. Okay. Is there any penalty for late appointment? At the moment, there's no provision in the law that failure to appoint DPO will cause any penalty. But uh, the commissioner once mentioned in one public forum that the appointment of DPO can be considered as your mitigation action that you have taken in order to ensure that your organization well comply to PDPA. For example, in the instance of data breach. So if you report to, how could you report your data breach if you don't appoint a DPO, right? So appointing a DPO is a good and best practice. However, there's no penalty because at this stage, the law wants to encourage more softer, approach to encourage people to implement this requirement. Okay. Mr. Patrick, okay, manufacturing sector. Okay. It's simply put, if it's still depending, you can always refer um, to the regulation. It states 13 sector that need to register for PDPA. If is your organization registered under SSM, and then you process personal data, then uh, um, you should register. Okay. If you fall into 13 class sector, so you need to register. So you need to check your registration, and then I would advise that you contact the regulator asking whether your entity is mandated to register or not. Okay. Okay, this is quite interesting from Rutan. Third requirement for DPO appointment, regular and systematic monitoring. If a company with few CCTV, but the monitoring is on less than 300 data subjects, do the company still required to have a DPO? Yes, because the regular and systematic monitoring does not carry with quantitative scale. So if you do consistent monitoring and systematic monitoring to 2 or 3%, you are mandated. Okay, you are mandated to appoint DPO, right? Okay, Miss Emily, need clarification on DPO appointment on third party data processor. Okay, payroll vendor. Okay, liability of appointment lies fully on data processor. Data contractor contracts enforced on DPO appointment. However, processor failed to appoint. Okay. Data processor or vendor, they need to appoint DPO if they fulfill 1 or 3 requirements. Okay. If they fail to appoint DPO, you can put some clause in your term. Maybe you cannot deal with that particular vendor. Okay. Yeah. Okay, what is the difference between DPIA and Cybersecurity Act? Oh, this is totally two different legislations. DPIA is falls in under Personal Data Protection Act, and Cybersecurity Act is another legislation to regulate and control the cybersecurity matters of critical infrastructure of nationals. Okay. Okay, Mr. Ru, again, sir, for company not required to appoint a DPO per requirement, is it still bound to PDPA? Yes, of course. Uh, as long as you do transaction, commercial businesses, you sell things, you provide service, and then you get paid, and then you process personal data, regardless who you are, individuals or company, you are still bound to PDPA. Okay. Okay, different between DPO or without DPO. It's about complying the law. That's it. If you are required, you fulfill the requirement of DPO, but you didn't apply, you didn't appoint. So it's about being comply or not complying. Okay. Okay. Ada Hanif, is the debt collecting agency mandated to register with commissioner? Okay. Sorry. Debt collecting agency. I need to get a precise more information on what types of debt collecting agency. But in PDPA, there's exemption on debt collecting act. Okay, so organization like Securities and CITOS are exempted from PDPA. Okay, so we need to look back at your status of agency. Is it registered under SSM? So it's under registered under SSM. So your activity seeking for debt information, if that falls into debt collecting act, so is exempted. But the process of using that information to to uh, to pursue debtors, you need to comply to PDPA. Okay. Okay. I have not checked the 13 sectors. So what about society keeping data of members? Okay. Society, normally we understand society as voluntary, NGOs, pertubuhan. So they are not doing commercial transaction unless certain society doing business. Okay. There are many NGOs ataupun societies nowadays, they are doing business or commercial transaction. So if they do commercial transaction and they collect personal data, they need to uh, oblige to comply to PDPA. Okay, is that clear? Okay. I don't have to cover the. Okay. All right. Okay. 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 From CY Cog, is that HR and finance personnel can be automatically become DPO? No need special appoint because company just less than 10 person. Okay. Um, if you appoint DPO, you need to register your DPO to commissioner. So you need official appointment. Okay. Uh, it's from Cherry Joe. Can the managing director themselves be appointed as DPO? It's a conflict of interest. If you remind, if you can recall, I mentioned that one of the requirements of DPO is to avoid conflict of interest. So managing director is the executive management of the company, and how that person going to be a DPO at the same time to criticize or monitor data protection ecosystem in the company. It's not advisable managing director to become a DPO. Okay, from Fikri Saminan, can I become DPO for more than one company? Yes, okay. Because we have some uh, um, outsourcing clause allowed by the commissioner. So one outsourcing companies eh, can take or monitor and become DPO of multiple companies. But let's say for a company ABC is the outsourcing company for DPO for 15 companies. But that company ABC must name one single person to become DPO for 15 companies. You cannot name company ABC as DPO for 15 companies. You cannot. It's quite similar to company secretary. Yeah. So company secretary they normally put a name of secretary to company. Okay. Okay. HR director to be appointed as DPO also a conflict of interest. Okay. Okay, these are lots of question about 13 class of data controller. If there your company is not fall into 13 listed company sectors, do we need to proceed for registration? The answer is no. But you still need to comply. You need to comply to PDPA. That's very clear fundamentals. Okay, my company is trading company. Okay, we have relevant documents listed under okay under 13 categories. Do we need to register? Yes, you need to register to commissioner. Okay. Okay. I would like to go for education sector. Okay. This one question about education sector. All visitors' data is filled in via a online form such as names, passport, okay, and saved in Google form, which the safeguarding officer can access. However, the safeguarding is not the DPO. So do we need to change the access to the DPO instead? Okay. You must understand that DPO is not the person that do everything. You need to control the data, everything under you. But you are the focal person. You can you can set up in a policy of your company who can handle specific uh, areas of data, which level of access they have. That must be administered and monitored by DPO. Okay, is accounting services required to have a DPO? Okay, back to question. If you are doing business, commercial transaction, and you fulfill one of three requirements, then you need to appoint DPO. Okay, my company has have total 5 branches and total headcount around 100 to 200. Is HR can be DPO? Again, HR is conflict of interest, yeah, sad to say. Uh, but you can appoint one DPO for all 5 branches. You don't need to have 5 DPO for each branch. Okay, that's then. Okay, okay. It's quite interesting about CCTV. Is because nowadays CCTV have becoming more and more important in security measures, and in fact, the integration of AI in CCTV has becoming more and more prominent. So there's a ongoing development of regulation. Regulator actually is developing a guideline in order to regulate ataupun guide people how they use AI, or another term is automated decision making systems. How those automated system or AI profiles people. And you put a camera and then you install AI, integrate AI with the CCTV, and then you from the video you can simply extract whatever information available publicly on that person. Okay. Why HR interests of conflict to become a DPO? Okay, because HR normally keeps plenty of staff information. Okay, part of data subject. So it is best to get someone else. Okay. Okay, I've been thinking the same. Is it suitable person to be DPO is from IT or internal audits? Um, if I say yes, means you can. Most people will use that uh, uh, as as a statement, but we we can analyze based on our situation or scenario in our organization. Can IT okay, uh, internal audit also can. All right. Um, okay. If we do not have DPO, oh, this is a good question from Shin Cheng. If we do not have DPO, not fulfill requirements of the three, what if data breach happen? Okay, since the law says that um, um, the requirement to notify any data breach subjected to significant harm and significant scales. Okay, so if your your organization experience a data breach, okay, does it carry a significant harm or significant scale to your data subject? So if not, if neither that happen, so you don't need to notify. Okay. But if that data breach happen, you need to notify. But back to the question, you don't fulfill the requirement of DPO. So I would suggest that you can always ask the regulator about this question. I think they have a good answer for this. Okay. Which one? Oh, okay. Okay, the time is up. I'm happy to have a more conversation with you. Perhaps HR Forum has plenty of training, upcoming trainings on DPO. You can always enroll and join those trainings, talks or webinar series. So we can always have conversation on person data protection in the future. Okay. All right. Over to Secretariat. Thank you very much for joining this webinar. Take care.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you, Mr. Ura, for our session today. So I would like to introduce our advanced data protection risk management for DPOs. So this has been mentioned by Mr. Ura just now, that which is part of advanced part of certification, but it's not a certification, it's just a training public. Okay. So for this training, we're gonna learn how to apply DPO core competency framework in real situations, and also how to conduct and defend DPIA and TIA. So as a DPO, you need to learn about DPIA and also TIA, because this is where you learn to reduce the gap within the data protection. All right. So we learn about manage cross-border data transfer risk, handle data subject requests and regulator engagement, and also advise management using risk-based recommendation. All right. So this training will happen on 27 and 28 April 2026 at Malaysia HR Forum Academy, Menara PKNS Petaling Jaya. All right. So if you are interested, you can scan the QR code or you may reach out to our Sophie by email or by contact number. All right. So if you have any question regarding DPO as well, you may contact Sophie and we will assist you on that as well. Right. Thank you everyone for today's session.
Most conflicts at the workplace do not start with rebellion. It starts with confusion.
Approximately 280 Bangladeshi migrant workers in Malaysia are claiming over $694,000 in unpaid wages.
Between January and October, Malaysian authorities issued 4 to 5 million ringgit in fines for labor offences, with 1,654 investigations opened involving forced labor.
But all of it is avoidable when you understand the rules and there is clarity. In this masterclass, I'll share with you how to understand Malaysia's Employment Act and its Sabah and Sarawak counterparts, manage disciplinary issues legally and ethically, eliminate labor disputes before they escalate. We will dissect real case studies from wrongful dismissal to wage disputes, from disciplinary hearings to forced resignations. Sometimes people tell me this kind of class is useless. You can Google it or ask around. But ask yourself this: do you want to be firefighting when the damage is already done? Or do you want to live with peace of mind solving issues before they ever reach your desk? Because no matter what your life looks like now, it can be better. Hi, I'm Arul and this is my masterclass.